Folks, hello and welcome everybody, I'm OneProperVariant and I am late today. Indeed, this video is coming a bit too late despite, as you might know, as you might be aware, me of course having access to the dev diaries of Victoria 3 one day early. Nonetheless, I didn't get to record this because I'm currently working on something for OPB's tweaks that I'm so excited for. I conscripted our mod and I think it looks amazing, but that has kept me busy, and that means that I wasn't able to cover this dev diary in time. But do not be dismayed, because today we're going to jump into this, and different from last week's dev diary where I basically said the entire time, I am not sure about this. I'm not sure whether this is exactly what I want to see. The stuff that is in this dev diary, I can tell you right now, is really neat. Let's jump into it and explore what is going on here, and then of course in the coming days you will see what I have been working on besides this. Happy Thursday and welcome to the first of several diaries about improvements and changes in update 1.3. Today we will cover changes made to the process of enacting laws, political machinations by your ruling interest groups, and the build up to revolution. So this is about the law passing process in general, about the government being fairly passive, and then of course also actually about the mechanic of revolutions in particular. First off, why are we making changes here? Well, while the core mechanics of law enactment and political movements agitating for legislative change and or revolution work well, and in accordance with the design vision, there are numbers of issues that has bothered us and many in the community since release. They are naming basically all of them right here, and they are correct on all fronts. The feeling of excessive randomness in law enactment mechanics. This shouldn't surprise anybody. I think this is the most common complaint that exists when it comes to the legal proceedings here. You click the button and then you wait. Sometimes you might even make it to 99% success because, well, it is just that random. The risk of getting stuck with bad rolls early on in an enactment process, leading to repeated frustration until you cancel enactment and start over. This one here, I will in particular say, I think this was working as designed. The idea was, right, that sometimes you take a law, you try to pass it, it doesn't work, you cancel it. And this might still be something that is, of course, optimal, that is viable, but it's just not fun, right? I've been playing this way. When I see something under 10, under 20%, most of the time I just cancel it, I select a different law, I move on, because almost always there is something that I want to pass. If you've been following the last playthrough, then you will know that I roleplay a lot, and there's a lot of changes back and forth that I might be making. But realistically speaking, I am an incredibly small, a tiny, a massively overestimated, I would say, minority. Most people look at this and say, I don't want to cancel things. When I click a button, I want that to be the thing that is being done. That clearly didn't work out. It's a really interesting highlight here that I want to make, because I think this sort of working as designed and yet not fun is super important to keep track of, both from the developer side but also from the community side. It can very often happen that mechanics work as designed, that mechanics are just fine but just aren't really fun. Exploits related to repeatedly starting and cancelling law enactment to prevent revolutions from ever getting off the ground. This is actually really funny to me, because yes, player do this, you will try to pass the law and then at some point you cancel it because you don't actually want the law, but you just don't want the rebellion to happen and you just needed a bit more time. The AI actually does this as well. I have been doing a lot of testing, a lot of back and forth, a lot of checking on how things work, and the AI absolutely does this. It is so funny to see, so obviously this has to be eliminated. The ability to disarm a revolution by inviting a supporting interest group to the government only to then ignore their desires. Yeah, I've seen that as well. Interest groups in government actually have less political agency than those in opposition. This has been a massive problem the entire time for sure, and they have a really good solution that I'm very much a big fan of. Revolution build-up not feeling particularly flavorful or engaging as a simple progress bar. Right, these are the things that they're working on. The one thing when it comes to revolutions that I would like to see that won't be in here, it has been confirmed, this is not a change that they are making right here, would be that when you have a revolution, you should be able, from the laws that your interest groups like, to actually just flip a couple of laws. Right now, maximum of 3 laws can be flipped by the interest groups that are in the revolution, and it will be laws that they like, but they are random, and it can be incredibly trivial laws like, I don't know, we changed colonial exploitation to resettlement. That stuff, listen, nobody cares about this stuff, right? So it would be great if they advanced on this, if they expanded on this, but it is what it is. This is already a really good shift, so let's just move on to what is actually indeed in the game. Law enactment change. Laws now need to progress through the three phases in order to pass, instead of simply having a percentage chance to be enacted once the clock fills up. So now there are 3 phases and you need to go through all of them if you want to pass. This is a big shift in the sense that all of a sudden the single percentage that you see doesn't mean all that much. It might be worthwhile sacrificing some percentage, and you're going to see this in a second, in events so that you can progress to the next stage. or it might make it then much harder to actually pass that stage, and then you're screwed. This is a much nicer consideration, because there isn't just a yes success and yes failure state. In this case, we're in a situation where you can say, okay, wait a minute, maybe there's a trade-off here that benefits me right now, but might have a drawback in a later stage. I like that for sure. What is not changing here are the underlying mechanics of success, advanced debate, and stall chances, which are based on the relative endorsement and opposition of the law from the interest group in your government and in movements. It has to be added as well. Movements also, most of the time, of course, when they go against it, but also when they go in favor of it, will give you a chance for success or stalling. However, when the result is a success, you will progress to the next phase instead of immediately enacting the law. If you then achieve success in the third phase, the law will pass. That is exactly how it works. To compensate for the additional time requirement, we have increased the pace of the enactment clock, which also means more twists and turns during each law enactment. Previously, it was not uncommon that if you had 40% endorsement, a law you want to pass, you might succeed on the very first checkpoint, which makes the whole thing mostly a waiting experience. By requiring a number of successes, we can compensate for the random factor and create more interesting challenges. See, most people, when they talk about these laws, they are talking about these super annoying effects that occur when indeed you are failing, right? When stalling occurs, when debates, listen, the bureaucratic imbroglio, the red tape, all that nonsense, we've all seen it a million times because it happens that often. I noticed in the particular last playthrough, when it came to the schooling, so the education system, and when it came to segregation, there were events in there that I had never seen. Because when I tried to pass these laws, I would only ever see full success or just debate and failure, because those are the two states of the process. There are a lot more events in there, and a lot more events that have to be made visible by actually letting you tick it forward without immediately succeeding. I've had so many cool events, especially with education, you know, where the discussion really was, who watches the child? What is going on here? Do we have enough educated teachers? And then I get this benefit, that was just in the Bavaria campaign actually, I get this benefit from my population being incredibly literate. I'd never seen that before. I didn't know that this was a thing. Now, this will be different because now you will have more events, you will have more stages, more chances basically are now available to you to actually see this sort of content. Very happy with this for sure. I just hope that it doesn't become spammy, but let's be real, that is always a concern. Right. Here we have hereditary bureaucrats being passed, and here you can see the interface. I'm actually really happy with the interface, I gotta tell you this as well, and I'm a stickler when it comes to the interface. I think that much is clear to everybody. So we're trying to pass appointed bureaucrats. We currently have hereditary bureaucrats. This is the new screen that pops up in the law section, right? And then we have introduction, consideration, and adoption. These are the three phases, and we need a success roll in each of them. So when you get a success roll, you just pass into consideration, another one, and into adoption, and then boom, another one, and you are good. Here you have three setbacks. We're going to learn more about this in just a second, but so far so good. This screen gives you all the information that you need. I love it. While this is, in the words of Alex in QA, who originally conceived of this feature, just 3 EU4 sieges in a trench coat, it solves the problem of excessive randomness and feels a lot better. It's true, right? This isn't a radical departure. This still says there is randomness to this. There is some weighting to this, but they have reacted to the fact that it just doesn't feel good needing to cancel by having these setbacks and by having every mechanic related to them. Let's take a look right here. Giving you a clearer sense of progress and increases the stakes of each decision made will feel a lot better. Choosing to get a 5% enactment chance out of an early event now doesn't just give you a 5% bonus to a single roll, success or failure, but effectively a plus 5% bonus to each of the 3 phases, because these values right here, of course, last week, they remain exactly where they are, which is a much bigger deal. You're also much more likely to experience a variety of events before the enactment is concluded. Events spawned by the enactment process are now categorized in association with the UI element that tracks your progress and identifies the outcome that spawned it to give you more context. They will also time out automatically, selecting the default option when the clock fills up, so there's always only one enactment event pending. No more delaying taking action on negative events until the next cycle to try to improve your better outcome. I've never done this. I've actually never considered this. That is so smart, but that exploit is now gone. Here you have the overview in the actual outliner to the right. You can see this is a very similar interface. You get these 3 phases, you get the setbacks, you get our success chance, and then bureaucratic imbroglio. Yeah, I love them. Great. At least you can see now that it's a stall event. One issue with the current 1.2.x build is that after dealing with a few negative events, you could end up with a net negative enactment chance, a hole you'd have to try to dig your way out of in order to even have a chance to progress. But of course, the lower the enactment chance, the lower the chance of getting a positive event, so this often turns into a self-perpetuating cycle of digging deeper and deeper. The correct action at this point is to cancel enactment and try again after a cooldown period, but this feels very bad. I love that they're recognizing this. This is so damn important. I was okay with doing that. I just said it was a failed legislative process, and I can take this into my roleplay. I can say this government wasn't effective. Maybe we should form a new one after the next election because this coalition just didn't make it. But I am basically the only person doing that. Everybody else says, this sucks, I wanted this law, where's the law, right? And now they're correcting this by making it so that, well, you can fail, but you can fail forward. Let's take a look at this. To address this, in 1.3, we have introduced a concept of setbacks, which can be taken to recover from a situation like this. Each enactment process can take up to 3 setbacks. If you play D&D, then you may know this basically as a saving throw, but let's put that aside. But when it has taken its 3rd setback, it will automatically and irrevocably fail. For as long as you have taken less than that, events will permit you to reset your current enactment progress if you have taken too large of a hit, or in some cases trade a setback to turn a negative outcome into a marginally positive one. So think about it this way. You can have up to 2 setbacks and the 3rd one is failure. This obviously means you're completely done, right? Here we have 1, and we could theoretically turn a negative event into a positive one by saying, hey, I trust that I will just succeed. I don't need the, fallback option of the setback. But if you're performing incredibly poorly, you can go ahead, eat a setback, and then with that setback, reset your chances. Let's say you started at success chance of 45%. All of a sudden, you're at 10%. Life sucks. This is pain. Boom, setback. You are back to 45%. The other changes are rolled back, and you can start from that point again. Obviously, it is risky because it might mean that the law ultimately fails, right, with the setbacks, but finally, this now actually tells a story. Instead of you just going into a menu, clicking, cancel this law, it's over, you actually have a story of how the law failed, who sabotaged you, where did it go, and then you can play into that much, much better. It really has to be said, this really learns from this design, working as designed, but just not really being all that fun. When enactment chance drops below 0, the legislative failures event will automatically spawn, so this is when it really is at 0, and let you reset back to a clean slate at the cost of a setback. Despite many efforts on the part of the government to successfully revive appointed bureaucrats from its present imbroglio, the law has come to be regarded as nothing but an inevitable failure. That bill, please, don't talk to me about it. I would say it's better to just pretend it never happened, don't you agree? Right, we must sponsor a complete rewrite of the bill. Costs you bureaucracy, costs you enactment chance, but makes it viable because it resets the previous outcomes. You can see this right here. The previous outcomes are indeed removed. This gives you 1 setback, but gives you the chance of returning to life with it. Many law enactment events have been backfilled with new options to let you take a setback in turn for avoiding a more negative repercussion, letting you gamble a bit to try to get your bill passed. If you really want this additional success chance, you can basically give away a setback, but it might bite you in the behind if you ever go below 0%, because that will give you another automatic setback, and sooner rather than later you will find yourself in setback hell. Rather, the law finishes itself off. Red tape, this is an event, we've all seen it, it is what it is. The civil service, currently led by the landowners, are deliberately stalling the government by creating unnecessary paperwork. They demand that their jobs be protected under the appointed bureaucrats law. Current civil servants can keep their positions unacceptable, get back to work, or use this opportunity to train their replacements. Obviously, this is a step back. You're not succeeding at actually pushing this law through, but you're giving yourself, basically, more time, more room to breathe. I think this is good. The big thing, and this has to be said, this is always true for Victoria 3, more than any other game, but the big thing here is balancing. Fundamentally, this rework isn't a change from what we have. The principle is the same as I mentioned before, but it gets rid of the rather inorganic approach where okay, I'm going to cancel it, try again in a year. Instead, hey, having a setback doesn't seem that bad. It might give you a chance to, come out strong right from the get-go without the already given feedback, or rather setbacks that you had, rather the negative effects. I think this is a really nice implementation. I just hope that the actual, balancing is really on point, because do I really want to take a setback if I can only ever get 5% enactment success chance? This is the way it seems right here, right? This very much seems this way to me, but maybe sometimes it's 10, maybe sometimes it's 15%, and maybe, I don't know, that could definitely be worth it. However, stall outcomes can also sometimes generate setbacks without your input, so be wary of pushing your luck too much. I hope that this isn't like, I don't know, I hope that it's not too random, because just dropping out just because I had a stall input without being pushed below 0%, because 0% is the automatic setback, right? I'm not sure. I hope that these sort of go hand in hand, because The below 0 already seems to be doing what an individual stall option otherwise might do all on its own, and I feel like that kind of doubles up. Anyway, even with the extra agency provided by the setback mechanic, you may find that enacting a certain law is so difficult it's just not worth it. When you cancel enactment in 1.3, you will find that the cooldown has increased to 2 years instead of 1, and is applied even if you have not yet reached the first checkpoint. I still wish there was a bit of a grace period. I sometimes click buttons on accident. Am I the only person? But also an entirely new effect. If there is a political movement currently agitating for this law to pass and you cease trying to enact it, the movement's radicalism will shoot up considerably. In many cases, all but guaranteeing they revolt as a result. Love this. Really good stuff. Cancellation confirmation box explaining the impact of your decision. This screen is why I love this dev diary. What are we looking at here? I looked at this and immediately knew these are land ownership laws. And if you've played with my tweaks, then you will have seen land ownership laws there. Land reform is such an amazing mod on Steam as well. Boom. You even have more categories here. I assume this is serfdom. I assume this is land ownership, just general land ownership, right? Maybe tenant farming, I guess. This right here looks like small holdings to me. This is like a land ownership ceiling. Who knows? What I can tell you right now, land ownership will become a massive topic. Finally, the rural folk will care about something that actually matters and that lets you weaken everybody that is a part of the landowner class. I am so excited for this. It's redacted, but come on, we all know what this is. I absolutely love this. I love to see this particular set of laws in Victoria 3. It's so important for so many countries, not last, of course, for example, the United States of America. Everything going on in Russia at the end of the day, as well as in South Africa. Really, really cool stuff. I want to see more of this, but this is a law that is just so vital. Really happy to see it in the game. This closes the door on 2 unidentified exploits. These were the exploits that we talked about earlier, where you can take away the law right after you started it, that I saw the AI do, but that's no longer viable because now you can't just redo the law right away. So, quite nice. But what about the exploit where a revolutionary interest group is invited into government, thus removing them from their political movement? In one sense, this is working as designed. Inviting a populist faction to try to execute their politics in a more respectable fashion is a not infrequently utilized tool for declaring a revolutionary movement. The problem with this in Victoria 3 is that a human player will be in full control of which laws are being enacted, so inviting a group into government doesn't actually give them more power to make change. It only takes away their ability to threaten consequences. Enter government petitions. I am so happy. What really matters for me here, first of all, this is, modders can use this like crazy, but I don't like to talk in, oh, this could be useful for X and Y. I want to talk about why this is so good, and I really, really like this. Because what we are looking at here is a way for us to basically go and say, okay, wait a minute, I have a government agenda. When an election ends, and I change my government to whoever is the most optimal, to whoever is the election winner, right? I will have a government agenda. I can ignore it, I can act on it, but most importantly, it means there's an impulse from my government to me, the player, and I could not be happy. I gotta tell you, this is a great step. You can see this right here. The Armed Forces petition the government, representing his constituents in the Armed Forces. Abul Ghazem Bek has issued a formal petition to the Afghan government to pass professional army. We will see what we can do. The Armed Forces will expect the government to pass professional army within the next 5 years. If you do it, this will give them loyalty of the pops that support the armed forces. Obviously, it will make the armed forces happier because, you know, obviously, a law that they like is being passed. Afghanistan will get legitimacy. So good. I love this. A different source of legitimacy than just how legitimate are you is so good because it shows that you are a responsive government, but most importantly, it makes more government sort of coalitions viable, right? You can have a non-perfect, an imperfect government coalition, and it will become great if you pass the laws that you are petitioned with. This is what I wanted. This is also very useful because it gives me the impression that we might be able to be, and again, we're talking about the what if now, to mod government and sort of law changes for the AI a bit more, because obviously when this journal entry opens, I assume this makes it more likely for the AI to actually pass this law, right? Big fan, because that is something I'm definitely missing when it comes to the OPB's tweaks. There's a lot to be done there. Anyway, if time runs out, if you do not succeed, gets a failed petition. I believe you get a less harsh penalty if you are trying to pass it when this journal entry fails. Interesting. In effect, this creates a kind of government agenda that the player is rewarded for pursuing and penalized for ignoring, further incentivizing building a government constellation of groups whose politics you actually want. Thank you. Thank God. This is such a good change. so much in this dev diary. It makes me very happy. You may be noticing it. In the current life build, a political movement with high radicalism will become revolutionary, triggering a countdown until they rise up against you, taking one or several of your states with them. In 1.3, these fundamentals remain, but the countdown has changed drastically. What happens now? When a revolutionary movement starts, it signals right here where it will be, and then it starts a clock. Obviously, revolutions tick up like we know when this clock pushes up, but you also get events, and these events let you influence just how sort of the radicalization is doing, how people are doing, how the interest groups are doing, and whether you can react to this. This means revolutions now aren't just an uptick, but are something that you can long-term influence and that you can evaluate, because you will now much better know where they want to rebel, which pops will want to rebel, and then you will get events to influence this. Let me just try to catch here. There, you can see there's a fast forward jump in here, right? So the Sunni ulama calls for intervention right here, and that is of course very nice. We can deal with that. We can, you know, basically help them. We can say no, we will just stop maybe passing the law slavery banned here, or we will do some concessions for the landowners. Good stuff. This means you will be much more active, much more reactive, I guess, even when it comes to revolutions, and you will actually have some choices. You can see here who supports what. You will see here what is going on, right? The next slavery ban is supported by these. Then the revolution is supported, of course, by the by the landowners right here. And then, oh my god, we're getting a really nice window that actually gives us an info breakdown on who is angry, where they are, what we can do about this. So you can see this right here. There is a movement window, basically. It shows the overall way towards revolution. Obviously, we're trending towards 100%. Then we see the ticker right here that might trigger a revolution when next time it gives us additional percentages. We see who is a member of this, and we see which interest groups are leading it. You can see this right here on the supporting pop tabs in the same panel. You can find out exactly who is providing the most support and radicalism to the movement. Maybe you want to do something to their wealth, to their political power, yada. Finally, we can actually have a much nicer overview over what is going on and how to react to it. Obviously, the reaction are still 15 steps, like I'm going to build this building and that building, and then I'm going to start exporting this so that this building becomes more profitable. You know how it works. What I'm saying, though, is I hope that this really makes it much easier to find these steps. It will never be easy, but it can always be a bit easier. The revolution clock events usually adjust the revolutionary progression up or down, but can also apply other conditions, some which may upset your country's political balance for quite some time. This can of course also impact revolutionary progression indirectly, as cloud heavily impacts the conditions of the movement. Makes perfect sense. Heavy-handedness. Dos Baraksai mistook an enemy in the armed forces. After accusing him of false charges, moderates in armed forces defected to the landowner's cause. Their bedfellows may not be so accommodating, or Dost Baraksai should stand down. Right, change progress of civil war by -5%. So this is how you can counteract this, and the time that you're buying with this is good for you, because then you can actually change the underlying economic position. Really a big fan. Revolutionary movements have also been given their own animated map marker to make it clear when the revolution is brewing and what territory is likely to go along with it when it erupts. Right, and yes, once again, I've had to redact part of the UI. I think. So, we've already talked about this, right? You can see this right here. This is where they will rebel. If you hover over this, you see what is marked. I hope that this is a bit fine-tuned in, like, what provinces turn, right? Anyway, this political movement is revolutionary. 7 weeks until next checkpoint. 78.3% total progress towards revolution. Support is very high. Radicalism is extreme. And then right here, this is redacted. I think this might be character-related, because they are talking about making characters more involved. Whether I'm a fan of it yet, I gotta tell you, I'm not sure. But I think this might be character-related. What exactly is this? Who knows? Maybe you know. Maybe politicians, maybe generals just pledging themselves to the cause here. Who knows? I am very eager to see, though, how exactly they solve this issue, because, well, we've talked about how I feel about politicians and generals in the last Dev Diary video. There's a lot of issues here coming with Victoria 3 on that front. Now, that is all for today. As you can see, we're putting a lot of focus on making internal politics more dynamic and fun to play with in Update 1.3, and there's much more to come in subsequent Dev Diaries. Next week, Victoria will present new laws we have introduced in the mix. Land ownership, but supposedly also more. We'll see what that is, to fill some late-game gaps and enable new early and mid-game conflicts between your political factions. I like this Dev Diary a lot. Let me know what you think. But I gotta tell you, after last week's Dev Diary, where I definitely was very negative on a lot of topics that, you know, I don't know. I'm just not convinced that that will be good, that will be something I will enjoy. The changes made here leave in sort of the player agency while handing over some more agency but never fully eliminating the randomness factor, the factor that makes it interesting, that makes it more than just a calculation. I really enjoy the changes made here, and I would be very interested in hearing your opinion. Sooner rather than later, you're going to see an update to the tweaks mod on the workshop. Doodles has been working relentlessly in the script mines, and we got some good stuff for you. But this is it for today, and I will see you later, alligator.